Hello, this is Andrea from OurDayDream, and today I have a special guest, and we're gonna kind of like chit chat about relationships. He's one of my good friends, and he's coached me on many occasions about different things. So today's guest is gonna be Jack Coleman. Hey, hey, hey. Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
I love your trademark.
Oh, my incense. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice smelling something as I talk. So I do that, and I listen to meditation tracks through the computer during calls.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Jack Coleman, and he does quantum coaching and quantum coils. Jack has coached me on many occasions about like my business ordeals concerning OurDayDream, but also he is a friend that has also, even though he's not a parent, he's coached me on parenting and kind of changed my whole outlook on being a single mother, and that though it's a duty, it's also a blessing. So so Jack opened my mind up to many things over our many conversations, and is totally worth checking out. But today we wanted to like talk about relationships, and we talk about relationships a lot. And but I love how you like talk about like cycles and different things like that. And so can you explain to us like about the cycles?
Cycles in relationships?
Well, yeah, like I think that would be awesome actually.
Yeah, just looking at the cycles that we go through in terms of mental states. So, like I personally feel like all relationships are just movements through energy. So we just call it a journey. We call it love, we call it relationships. But the way that I view it, it's like we're not just spending time with a warm body. Some people may look at their partner as just a warm body or a filler, space filler, because of whatever reason, they just don't feel for this person anymore. And then they're not moving through cycles as much. They're just kind of existing in a way. But when you have two people that are engaged, even if it's more conflicting, they're moving through cycles. They're moving through states of consciousness, because we didn't know something was a thing until this person came into our lives, either the first day or 10 years later, and they said that thing and it did something to us, either good or bad, and it shifts our consciousness. And it's not like we can only get the good stuff and we can't get the bad stuff, or try to only get the good stuff and avoid all the bad stuff. Both good and bad radically alters our consciousness. So then we learn something, and if it's good, we learn to appreciate it sooner. If it's bad, we learn to appreciate it after we reconcile it. But that person is there for that reason. And so yeah, we're just moving through what would be considered cycles, because we can repeat arguments. How people just, sometimes people can see an argument before it even starts, and they go, all right, so you're just going to say this and you're just going to say that and that, and then they go, well, yeah, I mean, like, that's what, and then they just go right into it, almost like they don't even realize the person knows that they're going to cycle. So that's basically what we're going through, and everyone has a different cycle, or rotation of these states of consciousness, or these emotional issues or mindsets. So like some people can see a cycle in a few times, after a few times, and other people it takes 10 years, or even a lifetime to see a cycle, because we have small weekly cycles. Sure, we can clean those up pretty easily. But we have lifelong cycles that are really hard to understand. And most of the time, do we even get to see them? or realize them. So we have all sorts of cycles and all sorts of scales and scopes and depths and intensities. And so relationships to me are just, you're one color, I'm another color, and we're just mixing those colors together, and we see what color we make, because when they overlap, they make another color, and that's how any color exists. It's the combination of two other colors, two peripheral colors. And all we're doing is just making infinite amount of colors with, 8 billion people on this planet, and experiencing, 8 billion other people in all of these different combinations. And so, yeah, we're just learning all these unique things. So there's a reason why we know the people that we know versus all the other people on the planet. We only know 100 people personally, and out of the 8 billion, and it's for that reason. Our consciousness is tuned in, and we're supposed to learn something with those people. And I think the faster that we can see that, the faster we can approach these conflicts and these triggers and these conflicts and dynamics. I think that we can move through them way sooner, way faster, if we realized what was happening, not necessarily trying to sort out right and wrong in that relationship, or me versus you. Just seeing that this is what's happening as a principle. This is the principle of what's happening, and we're just experiencing it through this label of, why did you take the car? We only have one car, and I had an appointment, or something like that. And we're sorting out those smaller things, but it would be good if we understood the principle behind it of, all the things that I just said. So that's my personal opinion about relationships.
I'm gonna check my Wi-Fi real quick. I don't know what is going on. Can you still see my face?
So right now, it turned to your stock photo, your profile photo. It only did it one time when since this one.
Yeah.
And now I completely lost you. All right, there you are.
It keeps breaking up, but it shows that my Wi-Fi is on. I don't know what it's doing. Yeah, so I meet people like that they are holding on to their past relationships so strongly. They did this to me and they did that to me, and it was and it wasn't right, and this, that, and the other. And I try to explain to them, well, that was just a movement on your way to where you are right now. So it's really hard for me to really explain to them, to try to, and I don't want to be rude and be you're playing a victim right now. So it's trying to portray it to where if you don't let go of what it is that they did that hurt you, you're totally gonna hit your head against that wall again in the future. And so that would be kind of put in the form too of cycles, right?
Totally. Yeah, because when we can't appreciate what has happened to us, we don't learn from it. It is as hard as it is. I mean, I can't say I've had all the crazy hard experiences like other people, but so I'm just speaking from, a theoretical standpoint and my minor experiences of it compared to what the stories I have heard from people. It's just every time that I come to a place, let's say, I felt like I was hurt by someone that I thought cared about me. Every time I come to a place of wanting to understand them, I see my lesson much more deeply. And every time that I don't, and I push it away, they're the ones that are screwed up. I initially believe that I'm learning a lesson, and that lesson is, chest out and F them and all of this stuff. I'm standing up for myself. And so that's the initial feeling of the lesson. And so it's really interesting that it changes. you know, it changes from that standpoint of I'm learning this standing up for myself and setting boundaries to, oh my God, like they really didn't know any better. Or like, oh my God, like they were just doing their best, just like I was doing my best. They
Right.
didn't realize what they were doing to me, just like I didn't realize
Yeah.
what was being done to me, you know? And so then once we start coming to that place, it then starts balancing out. And then we go, wow, so we both signed up for this together, you know? And as much as I was the one that was hurt in this moment, it doesn't seem like they were hurt. I'm not going to wish them pain to see what they did to me, you know?
Right.
And there are a lot of people that still live in that. And of course, there are some really harsh things out there happening to people throughout history. And so we still live in that paradigm. But I feel we're learning this kind of philosophy, this kind of principle for heavier and heavier scenarios in the world. Because sure, we could do it with like, you took $5 from my wallet or something like that, and initially we go F you, you know, but and then we're like, but it's just $5, like, you know, I'm sure I've taken something from you. I took like, you know, an avocado or two or something like that, and so then it balances out. And we have that same sort of philosophy, but it's just that's $5 in an avocado, you know. And so the difficulty is like, you raped me, you know, you assaulted me, you know, you never loved me for 20 years of my life, or at least in the way that I wanted you to, you know. And it's like those are heavier things to do that with, and so it takes more time, and of course there's more frustration at the beginning. But ultimately, I think that's where we go. You know, every time that I get to that space, I end up evolving way more than this whole F them, I'm setting my boundaries, you know, because I know better and they're the children and I'm the adult.
Yeah.
And that doesn't allow me to grow. You know, it allows me to like believe that I'm an adult, kind of like a child that puts on a belt on his jeans and thinks that now, you know, he can go out in the workforce and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you're 5, you know, we just bought you a
Right.
belt. And and they're like, but this is what you wear. And you know, and so just because we have something like that that makes us feel like an adult doesn't mean that we are truly an adult, you know. And so it's really being able to embody what being an adult is. And I don't believe that being an adult is saying F you, you did this to me, and that's why I get to just, you know, either slap you in the face and run away or turn around and not have to deal with any of it. I think a real adult, like a real, let's say a transcended person, let's throw in his name, Mr. Jesus, you know, Mr. JC. I don't believe that he was, you know, going about life that way. I really believe that that he understood this principle. I'm not saying turn the other cheek, you know, let everyone slap you around and turn your other cheek, because that's what makes a bigger man, to show how much pain you can take. You still have to stand up, but we just have to complete it with this whole other side of compassion. So we can still tell someone off in what they did. How we do it and the energy we put into it is really the important part. So if we want to put in good energy and tell someone, you hurt me, you know, I don't like the way that you did this, we have to come to that space of, you know, they really did know what it is they were doing. Not everyone can be fully aware of everything, you know.
Yeah.
Even Jesus didn't see everything coming, even though we might, that's my opinion, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I think everyone's working through a limited state of consciousness, and that's the best that we can do. And so we're learning to apply these principles to harder and harder scenarios. And so I think that's the evolution of, you know, humanity and consciousness, basically.
Yeah. And I feel like too, like I can tell people, like, the thing of the matter is, like, to not get run over. It's like, I'm gonna tell you how I feel, but I'm not carrying that with me. Which means, like, I'm gonna now give you the opportunity to be you, and I'm not carrying you around with me on my shoulder as something it is that you actually did to me. You know what I mean? So it's like, you have certain people like getting out of relationships. So like, I learned from that one, like, I'm not gonna fall for that trap anymore. And it's like, all right, so like that's the evolution of, it's like you could go from playing the victim or you could like evolve it. And so I'm actually learning something from this, and that's learning to put a barrier up. And then it's like realizing like I'm not actually going to carry that person along with me, but I'm gonna have an open mind for like whoever it is that comes along for the future.
Totally. You know,
Yeah.
because when we go through an experience, and let's say it was a more painful one, and when we go through those experiences, we can choose to stay or leave. So what we see in that painful experience, if we choose to stay, then we say it's worth it. But hopefully we're doing it from the standpoint of, wow, I didn't know I could grow like that. But you know, we don't want to stay in a painful relationship because it's like, I actually don't know what else to do. You know, that's where it turns toxic. And they are, you know, let's say playing a victim, but they're also doing it to themselves by continuing to sign up for that. But yeah, so I mean, we shouldn't always leave a relationship just because there's something hard or painful, or like we feel like they did something to us.
Right.
Because we do grow from it. But yeah, it's just, and so we get to pick and choose whether or not, you know, this is something we want to grow with them with, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the real question, is like, all right, they're inflicting a level of pain on me. Now the question is, am I going to grow from this? Are they, you know, is this something I want to experience within a partner? And then I can say yes or no. And then if I say no, then it's okay, this isn't the best, you know, where I'm going to have to separate or at least space out my, or distance myself. It doesn't mean we're done. It just means, you know, I'm not going to be by your side all day, every day, doing that thing. Cause that's a way more intimate connection. And if that sort of, let's say, trauma or infliction upon me, if that's going to be a regular thing, then I have to really assess, is that something that I want to have in my reality? And so, yeah, I mean, learning, being the victim of some sort of trauma, whatever it is, if we grow, then we see it sooner. We see it coming sooner, and we go, oh, you probably see it down the road, and you just go, I'm just going to turn, you know. But the reason why we got into it is because we saw it down the road, and we go, la di da 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 da, and we just kept walking, and they got closer and closer and closer. Hi, what's your name? Okay, let's go do that. And then boom, you know, we're hit with this thing. And then they go, I never would have guessed. And it's like, yeah, it's because you couldn't see it. And
Right.
that's the reason. That's a lesson, is being able to see something you couldn't see before.
I love that. And how many people out there are like, I just keep finding like these jerks. Like I just keep finding these assholes. Like they just keep treating me badly. Like, or you hear it's like they all, like all women are the same. They'll all cheat on me. So
Yeah,
like
right.
it's like, you know, like they keep seeing a repetition of cycle. Like, you know, and they're worrying about like, you know, being, you know, held or whatever, having somebody there for them, but they're not attending to like, you know, they're still carrying all that past baggage with them. So they keep getting punched in the face by the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's because they're dreaming about something that they're not actually feeling is a reality. And so then they say, you know, I'm dreaming for the partner of my life, but really they're still living like, you know, they're attracting the douchebag, you know, or that, you know, that girl, that ditzy girl. And so that's the dynamic, is that, you know, we might see what we would like to experience, but we don't live that way to align with it. Because once we start living that way, that we're dreaming about, those other people aren't going to naturally be attracted to it. So
I
they're
was
not going
just
to
talking
understand.
about that the other day, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's your vibe attracts your tribe. And so if so anytime that someone comes into my field and they have like a less than desirable energy, I don't go, oh crap, you're attacking me, because there's some spiritualists that, you know, or new agers that they look at it as an attack. And then I go, in terms of physics, you know, everything has its equal and opposite. So if they're in my reality right now, then I'm clearly playing or participating in this. So I don't blame them for like attacking me. I actually look at myself and I go, what about me was allowing this to happen? Because I know that when I really change my mind about things, you know, change my consciousness, my reality really changes. So if I start changing my consciousness about, let's say, arguments, debates, because that was it, like 10 years ago, I was talking a lot about aliens and stuff like that, conspiracy theories. And so it wasn't always the easiest conversation. And once I started evolving to appreciating that not everyone knows about this stuff, and especially not everyone cares about it, even if they knew about it, then I started appreciating people not wanting to hear it and respecting that. And if I ever started talking about it and then they shut me down, I wouldn't get offended. Like, well, you cut me off, you know, let me finish my point. I go, oh, it's not for everyone. All right, I'll see it. And so the more I exercised that, literally lived by it in my conversations, the less I had to argue with people. It was actually, I attracted more of the people that wanted to talk with me about these things, more so than attracting people that just wanted to fight me. And so then we had to fight around this subject, you know. So it was really interesting how that was working. I was like, man, the less I'm needing to get my points out, you know, despite what the other person wants in that moment, the less that I need that, the more I attract people that really align with this kind of experience I want in this conversation. And
So
I
it's
was
kind of
like,
like
oh
just
my,
like seeing that you're worthy. Like if you see that you're worthy, basically.
seeing that I'm worthy, and then respecting not everyone else wants it. Like for me, the biggest thing was respecting other people. You know, they want something different, and I don't look down on them if they don't want, you know, the information I'm giving them. So we just naturally have that, you know, like let's say in religion, it's like, this is my jersey I'm wearing, here's my badge, and so I'm going to only be talking about what's underneath this badge.
Yeah.
And so then if someone says, oh, I'm actually a part of another religion, then we can't, you know, I follow these principles or philosophies. If I go, oh, not everyone can see the light, that's me looking down on that person, thinking that what I have is the light and everyone else has a false light. There's no such thing as false light. Light is light. You know, universally speaking, speaking in terms of infinities, it's all light. So that means it's all right. But it doesn't always seem that way. And so when I was really attached to my message, like incessantly attached to it, I had to get my point out like I was converting them, like I was showing them the light. The less I attached myself to that, the more people wanted it. It was so amazing. Same with love, you know, talking relationships. Let's say for a guy is usually lusting over sex, right? That's like the primary thing. That's what women seem to hate. Women seem to hate being looked at as an object for sex. And
Listen, I
all
was
guys
just talking about this last night, and a guy was like, he's like, you know, it's so funny, you women, like, because like you have like a whole room of dudes just like begging for your number and to like talk and stuff, and you guys are like, man, I can't even believe that happened to me, and like you're, you know, and like you're so offended by it. But if there's any guy in that situation, they'd be like, man, I had this whole room.
here,
He's like, yeah, he's
here,
like,
take my number, take my number.
he's like, but you guys like really don't even understand like how powerful you are, like that you could actually do that, and that, you know, it's something that you like should appreciate. And he's like, but you guys are so funny because you'll be so offended by it.
Totally. And you know, there was something that was really interesting that I forget when I heard it, maybe a few years ago, but they were talking about power, you know, women's power. And this was before I was into the whole divine feminine, you know, like the super sacred divine feminine. I was just like, women are powerful, they can influence men. And this was kind of that going into that philosophy. Men are the ones literally signing the papers, you know, that are like, this, we made a treaty, you know, here's the paper, we wrote it up, we signed it, we're shaking hands. So they're physically doing it. But this, in this what this person told me was, they're like, yeah, and you know who really made that deal or that treaty? was their wives the night before, laying there in bed, talking to him and going, sweetie, maybe you should do that. That's a good idea, right? And so he's listening. She's the only person he'll actually listen to intimately. Everyone else is he's critiquing and analyzing. She's the only one, that at least the person that he's committed to sleeping with, and we could just say it's sexually. It doesn't have to be only sexuality. But for that overly masculine man, yeah, he's saying she's my wife because she's the only one I'm having sex with. It's so that's the bond. That's the basis. But that's a tangent. So basically, she has his heart. She has his emotions, because that's what we do when we're having sex with people, is that we're exchanging states of mind, we're exchanging emotions. So we're bonded with that person. And so we give them that ability. That's why, even though we seem to say that we hate our, our partner or whatever, I hate you, it's like, well, clearly you still care about them because you're staying with them, yelling at them, telling them all your feelings. It's like, if you really, I don't care one bit about you. If you really didn't care about them, you wouldn't even be doing any of that stuff. They wouldn't even be a thought. It'd just be like, who are you? You don't know who I am? Yeah, I literally care that little about you. I forgot who you were. We had sex last night. I had no idea. I don't care about you that much. You have no memory. So, like, if someone really doesn't care.
I was just like talking to somebody about this the other day. It was like, I was like, you men, like, you act like you're so tough and whatnot. And I was like, and you'll like act like, you could just sleep around with whoever. I'm like, and so like, you just like give it away so easily. Like, you're so tough. I'm like, but men are like, they get sucked in. Like, as soon as they have sex, their emotions are tied in like really quickly. And so like they're actually falling for the women. I mean, what I've noticed is they actually fall for the women quicker usually than the woman falls for the man, because their emotions get tied into that so fast. I'm like, but you guys will like walk around and act like it's not that big of a deal. It's just sex. But I was like, you guys like actually are more emotional. So it's best for you guys to like, it's best for you to hold off a little bit with a woman, not only to show her that she can trust you, but also like to guard your own heart, because you're going to eventually like fall for the wrong person,
If it's based on just that, So yeah, if they're just looking at them in that way and not actually, saying the reason why you're so sexually attractive is not because of the dress you're wearing. It's because of the things.
Yeah, but I mean, like they'll look at her like basically like, I'm just trying to get sex off of her, and then they'll fall for her anyway.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
like
saying.
They have that tough thing to them,
Yeah, I mean, most men are resting in work mode. Their resting baseline is work mode, and work mode is just looking at something, saying, "Do I want this? Do I not want this? No, okay. Do I want this? Do I not want this? Okay, no." So that's why you see most men, their brow is like, it's pierced in a way, and and you just don't see them like, going like this, like, oh. You don't see them wandering, or wondering. And so in that, it's because they're going, can I use this? Can I use that? Can I use that? It's very opportunistic. And so most men are just like dead face. And sure, we could say women have the same resting dead face and all of that, but it's just two different sides. But I think most men are in work mode, to where they're looking, can I use that, which is work, because I'm going to work on it. And it doesn't matter if it's a car or a person or a girl, like guys can look at girls as cars to drive, and then they go, I'm going to look for all the buttons. I might even read the manual. Maybe if she gives it to me, I might throw it away. I don't care, but I'm going to drive this thing like she's a car. So I'm going to ride her. And if you have a car that's, purely material, then yeah, you're gonna get bored of that, because you're gonna know where all the switches are, and you're gonna know all the things that you can do, and And so if you look at her just in that way, then yeah, you're going to want to buy another car. And that's the hard part about these long-term relationships in today's world is we have so many options, especially to meet people because of transportation and because of the internet. We can be a part of so many more people than ever before. And so we start to think to ourselves, can I get another car?
Right.
And so we want that when we live in that material mind, and I would call it the more masculine mind. The masculine mind to me is very material. The feminine mind, in my opinion, is very spiritual. So women want to look at the personality of a man more than his looks or something, or his money or something like that, even though we could say women gold dig, men go for sex, women gold dig. That's the general dynamic. Men
I've
want
been
sex, women
hearing
want
that
money.
so much
So I
lately.
think that
Like
women,
like you had said about
because it's coming out,
yeah, like I've heard that so ever since like
like
you
as
said
a
about it to me the
reality.
one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something people like, but watch any Hollywood movie and you will see that dynamic play out. Guaranteed. I find it so fascinating when, like I made some of those posts like months ago, and there are some women that are like, I completely disagree. And they're like, I don't see any of that in today, anywhere.
I
And
mean,
I'm
if
just
it's
like,
all
are you
over the
serious?
TV, well, if it's all
It's
over the
all over
TV,
TV.
well, then
It's in our
that's
personal
what it
life.
is. It's like what do we call that? Whenever like we're like subliminal
Programmed.
messaging, like transmitting that into our minds of how we
Exactly.
should
We're
be.
getting programmed.
Yeah.
And so we're getting programmed. We could say it's an external program, but I can also argue, I would say, my personal opinion is that we've been doing it well before TV, you know, uh, before we even had electronics. Men were looking at women to spread their seed, so that's sex, and women were looking at men to go kill some beasts so they have food, build a house, cut down some trees. So it's very fundamental in our life, in our society. It's just now, men aren't cutting down trees and like killing beasts and bringing
I
it back home
still
for food.
I still feel like that's like such a generalization. Like
It is. You're exactly right.
everybody is like looking for somebody in a different way, shape, or form. But it's like
Exactly.
I could find somebody right now to like keep me warm, but that's not somebody that's gonna keep me happy forever. So it's just like waiting
Exactly.
for that one that like not only will keep you warm, but isn't gonna break your heart later on.
Exactly. But let me ask you this. How many women would want to date an unemployed man? A
So like
percentage. Just give me a percentage.
I mean, men will actually look at women
Hold
like
on.
that too.
Hold on. Yeah, just
You're like,
just
oh,
answer that one.
I
Yeah,
don't.
because there's a part two.
I
So
mean,
let's just say
no.
10% of them, 10%
I
would
have dated
actually go
unemployed
on a date
men.
with a guy. Yes, and you're one of the 10%. So congrats. But let's just say it's 10%, that 10% of women would be willing to date a man that's unemployed and actually be attracted to him, actually be invested in him. And so that means 90% of them would say, oh, you're a great guy, but I want to date someone who's employed. So meaning his personality is great. He just doesn't have any money. Why? Maybe because she wants to travel. Maybe because she wants to live closer to the beach, all these material things that she wants to make her feel comfortable. And that allows her to feel more sensual. Why? Because then she could be more sexually attractive. And so then that's going to play into him wanting to work harder to make more money so she can be more sexually attractive, because she's going to feel more sexually attractive if she's living by the beach. She's going to want to put out an effort in that way. And so that's why, you have the housewives and they're all dressed up and they're very pretty, but they don't have much to say because their main focus is, I'm trying to look good for you so that you'll work harder to make more money to come back in, you know, I'll get to benefit from it. And then it's,
I mean,
this
I would
cycle.
love that type of dynamic.
Exactly. Most women would, you know?
Yeah,
And
but
so here's the thing, is that here's the other side, the part two to that. How many men are willing to date an unemployed woman if she's good looking?
right. I
Way
mean,
more.
I feel like good looking
About
men
90% of them
oftentimes
wouldn't care.
they prefer like the woman not to be working because then they know that she would be at his beck and call.
Exactly. She's
I
like,
mean, what
he
my
knows.
opinion. Yeah.
Exactly, because he knows she's gonna be home. He knows that, you know, she's not gonna have any options. So that means whatever he says goes, because it's a man's world. You know, it's his world. He makes all the money, so he's gonna be able to make all the calls, make all the decisions. And there are women that get off on that. They actually really enjoy that. And so they actually really enjoy, you know, having the man make all the decisions. She doesn't like making any decisions. And if a woman is making the money, you know, she might be you know, saying like, I'm making too many of the decisions. I want an employed man because he will actually then make more decisions and make me feel like I'm following him. And that makes me feel like a woman is following someone else. So you can see some paradigms coming out in like religion. You know, the follower is the feminine following the man.
I get a lot of times they'll they'll notice that like I have kids and they'll be like, listen, I can't afford financially kids. And I'm like not even trying to get with you like right now. But you know, still it's like I can take care of my own kids. Like I'm good. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't really need your help. But like I see a lot of guys that are like that too. And I feel like too, like there's this mentality like no matter what, everybody's always broke.
Yeah,
you know I mean? Like and no matter how much money they got, it's like, man, I'm strapped for cash. Like I don't have any money right now. You know what I mean?
I pay for my $500,000, you know, beach house on top of my other two houses. Like I'm broke, you know. Yeah, it's amazing how much money people can make and say like, you know, I'm struggling for money. So I mean, even that just plays into a relationship of, okay, well then that's the energy in that relationship. And I honestly don't feel like it's totally this you know, dynamic. Men make money, men make a bunch of money, women, you know, make a bunch of sex, basically are sexual objects. But it's just like I said, Hollywood over and over again. It just continues and continues, and always the puny guy is usually jobless. He makes very little money. He's not that typical masculine guy. And then what do you know? He bursts into this I don't know, this alpha male. It's rare that you see her accept him for who he is and being a broke, you know, potential bum in some sort of way. And there are some independent films that do play that, but most of the mainstream stuff, you just have an overly masculine man that has everything under control on a material level. And then he's saving a damsel in distress that seems to get close to his heart. You know, she's the only one that can get into his heart. And so, and what do you know? She does it sensually. She's not doing much else other than giving him that sort of emotional space, you know, feeling like she's with him. And so that's the general dynamic. And it is a generalization, but like anything, you know, you can't, if I told you an apple's a fruit, you can't get offended with that, you know, with that generalization and say, you know, like, well, hey, what about all the other fruits out there? And so, yeah, all the other fruits are included in on this. And that's why we call it a fruit, but that's also why we specifically call it an apple, because there are some slight differences from, you know, pears, from oranges, from kiwis, from grapes, you know. So we have all these differences, but they're generally fruits. So we can't get upset with this dynamic of men generally being this way and women generally being that way. That's just us saying, I'm not ready to see the fruit, you know, the entirety of fruit. And so it upsets people. Like it upsets, you know, a couple of people, and they didn't want to see it that way. Maybe because they already moved out of it. But I found it odd that they said they couldn't see it in the world. And I go, I don't know if you moved out of it. I bet they're still perpetuating it. And they were actually just offended that I was breaking down that paradigm, because then once you see something, you can't go back. You can try and drink it away as much as you want. But as soon as we see something, we're not going back to, I'm not going to unsee that.
Right.
You know, or I mean, yeah, so I'm not going to be able to unsee that. And so people don't like seeing these sort of paradigm shattering philosophies, because they're like, I'm still living in it and I still need more time in this. Don't make it so obvious for me that I'm actually looking for men with money, and that's why I'm so frustrated in my dynamics in relationships. And that's why they don't actually look at me in terms of a human being, because I'm looking at them for money and they're looking at me for sex. And so of course we're both overlooking who they are as a person and saying, that's what I want to be with. And then he happens to be rich, you know, him saying, oh wow, that's someone I want to be with, and she happens to be sexy, you know. So it's like, it's adding those things together. Sure, we can still date people that have money and that are sexy, that we feel have money and that we feel are sexy, because it's all relative. But we have to really look at, what are they thinking and feeling in that moment, because that's really what we're connecting with. And if we're not connecting with that, we're going to have horrible connections, horrible relationships built on very little grounding. And of course, we're going to have very little, no matter who it is, because they're going to be so different from us that all we're going to do is feel like we have to compromise. Every time we're together, all we're going to have to do is feel like we're compromising our time, because it's like, oh, you want to go do this and I really want to go do that. And all I got to do, you know, all we're both doing is saying, all right, well then what do we do? And they're like, well, let's just not go out, you know?
I feel that.
And so then they both get pissed.
Yeah, and I feel like too, like I have heard one time, like the biggest mistake that partners do is, like, in the very beginning, they get so intertwined in spending their time together that they kind of that they kind of like become addicted to one another, that they don't want to like spend time away from one another. So it's like they go to work and then they're trying to spend every moment with that person. And then after a while, they get in this routine, like she gets used to him always being around. And he gets used to her always being around, but nobody wants to offend one another to kind of branch off. So they kind of like lose their independence in that thing. And then later on, like they look at each other like, you took that from me. You took my whole life from me. You took my independence away from me. You know, everything that I enjoyed. Now I don't even look at it anymore. Like, you did that to me. And it's like, no, you did that to yourself. You know what I mean? And I did that to myself too. So here we are in this situation, you know, where we don't want to hurt one another's feelings.
Yeah. So it's never going to be one side, you know, you did this to me. It's always going to be, you did this to me and I did that to you. And so we might say, no, but you did this and that's completely separate from what I did to you. And what I did to you was actually not a bad thing. It was a good thing. And then they go, no, what you did to me was actually a bad thing and not a good thing. And then I go, no, what I did to you was a good thing. You should appreciate me for it. But what you did to me was a bad thing. And then they go, no, what you did to me was a bad thing, and what I did to you was a good thing. And it's like, can't we just understand that we're both doing shit to each other, and then you know, trying to process it, and it's misunderstood, it's misinterpreted, and you know, just the whole, you know, level of separation, and like you said, level of connection. So sometimes connecting too much is a bad thing, because you know what you just said and how you played it all out. And so communication is the only way to flex this balance point of being too far apart and too close to each other, because even those two people are good for each other, they need a level of separation in order to have a balance point. And two people that are good for each other that are too far apart need, you know, a level of connection. So then you make an effort to get closer to each other if you're too far apart, or you make an effort to create a distance. But I think we generally have a paradigm of if you're in a relationship, you're always getting closer and closer and closer to where you're literally by that person, except for work. That's the only time. And like you said, even then you could still think about them at work. But people say, oh, relationship is just about getting closer and closer and closer, where you're eventually tied at the hip, connected at the hip. And so yeah, not every good relationship or deep intimate relationship needs to be that way, you know? And I just think it's really interesting how we can space ourselves from people that we really love, you know, even our
Yeah.
romantic partner, one single romantic partner. We could have a better relationship if there is a level of respectful communication in some distancing, saying, just because I'm saying I want some distance doesn't mean I hate you, because that's generally what we're afraid of saying.
Right.
Is like, if I say that, you know, I've had enough of you, the other person that's not ready to hear that, they go, oh, well, geez, okay. And then they just get all upset
Yeah.
and then they turn away. And then they go, well, looks like, you know, I made a completely, you know, wrong decision. This was a horrible mistake, you know, for the last 10 years of my life. And
it's all
it's like,
over.
no, that's not, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's all
true.
over.
It's true. So like I try to tell somebody too, I'm like, you know, like a relationship should be two independent human beings being independent together. Like it should never be intertwined to where like, you know, everything revolves around you. Like we should be independently be able to walk and do the things that we need to do in order to make us happy, but it should be together. You know what I mean? Of course, with integrity, but like we should never compromise our independence to be with somebody, because ultimately we're just going to end up getting agitated with them in the end anyway for taking that away from us.
Yeah, I agree. And I can't say completely. I'm not someone who's into absolutes. The only absolute, in my opinion, is singularity, God, source, you know, creator. That's the only thing that's truly infinite. Everything else has a finite limitation, and it's relative. And so, you know, to be completely independent, I would actually say, in my philosophical mind, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship at that point. Because and then if I'm completely independent, which means I can do all things by myself with no need for anyone else or anything else, that's literally what we would call God state. And, you know, it's just basically omnipotent, you know, omnipowerful in all ways. That's completely independent. So if that's not the case, if I'm not really this God, or I'm just a fractal of this God, then that means that I will have limitations. And that means that I will enjoy other people doing these things that I can't do. And so I will be dependent on people, you know, and I would call that a relationship. If I'm not dependent on someone, I would throw out this argument saying, or perspective saying, that I'm actually not in a relationship with them then. If I'm independent of them, then I'm not really with them. Because that's what we do, is we lean on each other, we depend on each other, and we say, I can't do that. I'm taking care of the kids. Can I depend on you to take care of that? You know, and they're taking care of that. Can I depend on you to? And so we're constantly depending on each other without calling it that. We just call it a request or just a question, you know, can you do this? But ultimately, that's what all relationships are, is just asking each other to be a part of that, either to do it because we can't do it or to join us in it.
I like to join us in it.
Yeah. So
and
I mean,
that should
not
be like
everyone
in
can.
life. Like you're gonna join me in life. Like
Yeah, exactly. And so
yeah.
not everyone can even join too, because like, you know, we have to learn a level of separation of, you know, that I have this event, these people are paying me to come out here, I'm doing this for work, and this is going to bring home money for, you know, the family, but you can't come along, not because I hate you, but because, you know, of these other externalities. And so then she has to say, or I mean, she doesn't have to say, but it would be awesome if she would say, like, go do your thing. You know, I love you, I trust you, you know, and
Yeah.
we're going to be
Yeah.
separated for a period of time, rather than say, don't go, you know. And
Right.
so if we're not doing it together, we're not doing it at all. And so we
Right.
have these, you know, aspects to this, which is, you know, I am independent, I can do it by myself. You know, I am dependent, I want you to do it for me because I can't do it myself. So 4 aspects: I'm independent, I can do it myself; I'm dependent, and I need you to do it for me, or I want you to do it for me. And Oh man, I lost it. But basically, yeah, let's say that third is, oh yeah, doing it together. You know, so we're doing it together because we love each other, and we're spending that time together. And then also doing it independently, still from that place of love. So it's 4 different aspects to a relationship. I'm doing it by myself because I can do it by myself. I want you to do it because I can't do it by myself. Let's do it together, and we might need to not do it with each other, you know, not do it together. But it's all out of love. Hopefully, it's all out of love, because, you know, in the first 2 examples of independence and codependency, it can easily turn into something negative. It can easily turn into the things that, you know, we're talking about in terms of most other people. Like, you know, most of the time people would say, yeah, I don't want to be dependent on someone, only because they've leaned too hard on someone and took them for granted. So when we lean on someone and we take them for granted, that's when our emotions start getting twisted and turned in all sorts of directions, because we are expecting them to do something. And when
Yeah.
they don't do it, because life comes in, not everyone has to do any of the things that they do. And when we
Mhm.
expect someone to do that for us, we forget that not everyone has to do the things we want them to do.
Yeah.
That's an expectation, is basically saying, you're supposed to be doing this thing, whatever that
Mhm.
is. And we forget, in the grand scheme of life, in all of life, no one has to do anything. So
Right.
if I say that in my throughout my day, you don't have to talk to me. But
Right.
here we are talking to each other. You know, I don't have to go surfing with this guy, but we're surfing together. The more I can tell myself that and realize, wow, they made a choice to be with me, even if they're not the happiest person. They could have been doing so many other things. That should be a blessing. And then
Right.
we turn from taking them for granted to taking them as a blessing, and just
Appreciating
saying,
them.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah, just appreciating them. So I think
And
that's
that's a
what we're
compassion
arguing.
point too. It's like understanding too, like they don't like everything that we like, you know, and so like it's a compassion thing too there. But like
Yeah.
I really like I really that like really hits home for me, like the fact that like if he was like going out of town for this, that, and the other, it was like, you know, like if I was making a choice to go and do something on my own, that was me just not wanting anything to do with him, you know. And next thing you know, it's like the threatening of a breakup and like the whole world's falling apart and everything else. But I wanna touch base. I wanted you to touch base on there was one time like I was telling you about how like you'll just like keep holding offenses and you'll keep building them up and building them up and building them up. And so
I will hold offenses.
yeah, like I was chatting to somebody about this the other day. I was like, you know, I was talking to my friend Jack one time about how like, you know, like in the beginning, like we can just like hide all this stuff that bothers us, you know, and we'll just think to ourselves like, you know, oh, maybe I'm just like blowing everything all up, or, you know, maybe it's just me worrying too much or stressing too much. And you had told me, you said, you know, if it is that something's bothering me in a relationship, rather than holding my tongue about it, I'm going to say about it. And if it is that it feels like to them, it feels like I'm constantly like nagging at them, then that's probably not the right energy right now that we need to be um
To speak
like
from.
Yeah. So I really loved like how you had said about that, because I mean, it really is like an awesome thing. So it's like if I got with somebody and all it felt like I was doing was like, rah, 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 you know, like growling about this, that, and the other, or even in my head, that's probably not something that I want to keep on accepting.
Yeah, I mean, on both ends, for a guy that's experiencing their partner doing like if I mean, everyone's different. This is my personal opinion. If I dated a girl like that, I would be like, I'm out, automatically. I would not say this, it doesn't matter how crazy the sex is, I'm done. Because that's generally like why a guy would put up with no guy. I mean, maybe some guys are out there saying like, yeah, that's just sexy when a girl nags at me all day long. I'm sure there's someone that says that, but most of the time, but I think most of the time the guys are like, God damn it. Like, sorry. Sorry for saying that. Like they're probably saying something along the lines of like, I can't wait for her to stop. Like, that's all that I'm doing is just trying to get to this space where she's not nagging anymore. And so they have to put up with her. And I'm just like, man, why? And the only thing I can come up with is that generalization, that general dynamic that men and women go around. Men put up with her, put up with whatever it is that she's doing on a personal level, because at the end of the day, they're going to have some sex and it's going to be, good for him, stimulating. And vice versa for a woman that puts up with a man that doesn't listen to her, that doesn't care about her friends, and won't listen to her problems, and she'll say, but he just bought me a nice car last year, like I just can't leave him. And so she's gonna say, she's gonna overlook that, putting up with his lack of connection, spiritual connection, because of, let's just say, the money or the house or something like that. And so they're going to put up with each other, up because of that reason. And I would just say, like, yeah, that's a very frustrating state to be in, and it doesn't make sex any better. It actually makes it worse, because for guys, if you're listening and you're a guy, what makes sex even better is when you're vibing with her. You're going in and out of her mind and her consciousness. That's what makes it so awesome. It makes it way better than any of the sex you think is built up on makeup sex. People think
Right.
makeup sex is craziest stuff. And I'm like, you're perpetuating arguments without realizing it. So a cycle, you're perpetuating a cycle of conflict because you think makeup sex, aka angry sex where it's like it's built upon the stimulation is
Emotion.
built upon
That's the
negative
only way that they
emotion.
want to have
So
emotion.
tension.
Yeah.
You can have positive emotion, but most of the time people think sex should be angry. They're and there's violence in it. You're hitting each other, you're calling each other names, like you're not complimenting each other. Like, I'm sorry, this is getting too graphic for people, but let's talk about it. I'm it's crazy. People think awesome sex is calling her a dirty whore, and then she's calling him daddy, and I'm like, what? This is sex? This is what makes sex stimulating? Is that dynamic? She's a dirty whore, and he's her daddy. That is so twisted. And we have that in Hollywood movies. I mean, it's not just porn. I mean, it's everywhere. Even normal people. I've had sex with people that would say that shit to me, and I'm just like, no, I am a human. I thought I was connecting with a woman right now. I'm not a dirty whore girl. That's my daughter. That's not the dynamic I want to be doing. That's actually less stimulating. And so when I'm connected with a woman from this divine space, and we're in harmony, we're in sync, oh my goodness, it's magical. It's way better than the smacking and calling names and pain inflicting, inflicting pain on the person.
I never
It's like,
understood
it's
that
so
either.
crazy.
Because it was like, let's hurry up and get this done and over with. I'm like, you didn't enjoy that very much. Like, you couldn't have.
Yeah, right.
And it's like,
It,
what was that for? Like, what was the purpose and all that?
in my opinion, if they're not having the makeup sex, because that's when they make it an experience. That's when they set it up and they do it something different. But when they're not having makeup sex and it's shorter, then it's a release. It's a release for tension that they built up for that day. So it's something super small. It's just like taking a shot at the end of the day. You just take a shot and then you go do your thing. It just releases the tension. So people look at sex the same way of, oh my God, I can't believe I had, I had to go through that today, which is just work. Let's say it's either work for men or it's parenting for women, it's being a mom. And so at the end of the day, they go, oh, thank God for my glass of wine or my shot of whiskey. And they're not looking at it like it's a sacred medicine that, that's healing them. They're just saying, just give it to me, just pour it. And so people look at sex the same way. Just give it to me, just get me off. And so when they approach it with that energy of just get me off, that better believe that that's just a point or a way to release tension without drinking. So then of course they're not going to put compassion into it. They're not going to put effort into getting there. They're not going to try and make it an experience for 1 to 2 hours. They're going to say, it's probably going to be 15 minutes and then I'm going to go to bed because I got to wake up and go to work. And
imagine if like we all like looked at ourselves as like sacred humans and like having like sacred experiences and like these things like just aren't happenings, but it's something like truly phenomenal and special. And so like I had my first like encounter with this one time. I was having like a bad day with my coworker and I was like reading a book or I was listening to an audio book and it's like, you're holding offense to this stuff that's happening to you right now. And you're just like a little dot, on a dot in the middle of all these galaxies. Like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, wow, like what for real am I? Like, it's miraculous that we're even here and that, I exist and I think and feel the way I do. And, to really see that as like, I am really something incredible. And like my experiences is something incredible too. And so, but I don't know, like, what do you think, like, the best way to really, like, connect with somebody that would really, like, be your vibe? You know what I mean? Like, your soulmate, or what do you call it? You don't call it a soulmate.
Partner? I would call them, like, if I'm intimate with someone, I call them my partner. Because I believe soulmates, soulmates can be all sorts of people, and twin flames. I actually believe I try to live. Yeah, twin flame is another one. I believe in infinite consciousness. So if I believe in infinite consciousness, that means that I can throw out any name for one single thing, which is connection. That's all a relationship is connection. Right. People don't like this as much because they're like, when someone says I'm not in a relationship with them, and I'm like, how do you know them? And they're like, I work with them, or they're my neighbor, or I go to that cafe and they always make my coffee, and I'm like, that's not a relationship. None of those are relationships. And they're like, no, that's not a relationship. I'm not having sex with them. And then I'm like, okay, so then you're going to define a universal principle called relationship through one way of experiencing someone, which is sex, rather than coffee, rather than living next door to them, rather than working, at the office with them. So all of those are relationships. It's just, what are we relating on? What are we relating with? That's the difference in all relationships. So soul flame, or I mean, sorry, soulmate, twin flame, you know, romantic partner, life partner, whatever, they're all the same thing, you know, friend, family. I just, my definition of how I separate someone very special, you know, like the feminine, that one person, I call them my partner. And I don't call any other woman my partner unless I feel that way, that she is the only one that I'm focused on in that moment. I wouldn't even call her my wife because I don't believe in marriage. But I believe in union, and I believe in love, connection. And so that being said, you know, men, women, elderly, children, all could be my soulmate. I've had plenty of people tell me that we're soulmates. I've had plenty of people tell me we're twin flames. I've had plenty of people tell me we were soulmates in past lives, and this is what we did to each other, and I need to pay for it in this life. And I've had a lot of weird things told to me, and so I'm just like, you can label it whatever it is you want right now, but ultimately it's a feeling. If I'm not vibing with it, then I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not going to participate in it. Not from like an egocentric standpoint, but just I'm not vibing with that. You can't tell me I'm a soulmate if I'm not feeling into this soulmate aspect. And then they'll say like, you know, oh, you're just not aware of it. You know, someday you'll come around to realizing how we're soulmates. And it just takes time. And I'm like, no, that's your way of coercing me into believing I need to be with you, you know, and they're doing it through the spiritual lingo. And, you know, you wouldn't guess because you're like, oh, we're soulmates. It has to be good. But I'm like, people have really tried to coerce me into their world by making a vulnerable mind twist and turn to believe something that they're not really tapped into, you know, thinking that. And I'm just like, even if that's true, then this is a parental and a child dynamic, you know. So even if I'm unaware that we're soulmates, the way it's being handled is now you're my parent that knows what's best for me, and I'm just a child, and I don't want to participate in that dynamic either. So either way, you screwed yourself. So congrats, hats off to you. So for me, in terms of what, you know, what I look for in finding a partner, a romantic partner, is obviously like the most similarities. So I personally like harmony. And it doesn't mean that we're doing all the same things, but I have a preference because I've been constructing my ideal partner by self-awareness in terms of what has screwed up my other relationships. And one of them was distance. So there are some relationships that needed more distance, and there are some that I wanted to be closer. And my ideal one that I dream about is actually being very intimate with my partner. Literally, like we're working off of each other, not just having sex with each other, but what we show up to as a life purpose is actually the same thing. And the closer we can get to that, the better I feel. And the more I want to be a part of them. Why? Because I love what it is that I'm showing up to in my life purpose. I love that I get to do that. And if I'm with someone who does not love that, then I have to have a level of separation with them. And so then I would say, okay, I have to be okay with working on this thing by myself or with other people. And that means 8 hours out of the day, I'm not with her. And then I would ask myself deep down, I would question my higher self or my God source, my Christ consciousness. And then I would go, is this it? Is that something I like? And then I looked at it and I go, no, I actually want to be able to work with my partner. I want to be able to make love with her and work on projects with her. That is super attractive. And so if I can't do one or the other, if I'm only working on projects with her, then she's a colleague. If I'm only having sex with her, then she's, you know, let's just say that, you know, a romantic partner. What's super attractive is being able to do both, which means she has to have sensuality mixed with intellect, because that's what work is basically being smart. So you got to be sensual and smart. Normally people are more one or the other. They're normally more intellectual, but they're not sensual. And they're really sensual, but they're not intellectual. They don't like deep conversations. And so that's, for me, that's the duality. And I have a particular balance point between how intellectual she should be and how sensual she should be, what I would prefer. I'm not demanding it on her. So if I'm dating someone and I don't see that, I want to ask her about it. I want to try to feel it out. If she's not there, then I respectfully just say there's someone else, you know, that is probably more of that I would like. I don't tell her that, but that's what I'm feeling. And so I'm not trying to convert her into a level of intellect that I feel she needs to be in order for me to be attracted to her, or a level of sensuality. I'm not going to try and convert her. If she wants to become that, that's awesome. But also at the same time, that's what I'm looking at the beginning, because I'm single and I don't, you know, I took time away from these kinds of relationships so I could understand what it is I actually am looking for, rather than just connecting with someone that says hi to me. You know, like people that meet at a basketball game, I'm like, that you have so many other parts of your life out there, you know, that it would be, to me, it's the most dangerous thing to meet at a bar or a basketball game, or you know, at the post office or the grocery store. I'm like, everyone goes there, you know.
I don't
You're
know. Like I that makes me think of like a conversation I had with you one time. It's like that I never really thought about, like how much nerve it actually takes for a man to approach a woman, and like how they like actually have to figure out how to do it just right in that moment. And so like if you think about the grocery store, like that's really awkward. Like I've had
it
people
is
do that
awkward.
to me at Walmart and stuff. Or where the heck was I recent? I was in a store and somebody come up and asked me for my number because they liked the way I was walking around like a crazy person. But so like, but like us women don't actually really acknowledge the fact of what men actually go through in order to like
It's
approach.
it's tough, but in my opinion, if I'm gonna pick up a girl at a grocery store, everyone goes to buy food. That does not mean we're gonna harmonize.
Right,
Hopefully,
right,
I
right.
mean, oh wow, you bought the same apple, you know?
Right.
Wow, we must be soulmates. I don't know. I want to say that just because we're both at the same you know, apple line doesn't mean that we're supposed to be soulmates. So even if I am going to pick up a girl, or let's just say start something with, I don't want to pick her up because I'm not saving her, I'm not picking her up. Let's just say I'm starting something, I'm engaging with her over apples. I understand that we're connecting through something that isn't really deeply connected to us, because we're not drooling over apples going, oh my God, all my life I've just loved apples so much. And that's all I want to do is just be with apples. And I'm like, oh, me too. You know, like I love apples so much, and just the colors that they have on their skin. And she's like, oh my God, talk dirty to me. Apples, you know, and so I'm not going to, you know, we're probably not going to have that kind of connection over apples. So we could say that we're not connecting over our life purpose. Apples are not our life purpose right now. So that's something that I have to really tell myself if I am going to like talk with someone that I know nothing about, and we're in a general space, you know, basketball game, a grocery store, wherever else, even the beach. You know, I've talked with girls that on the beach, I'm in Hawaii, and you know, I go up to them and I talk with them, and I had to actually tell myself at the end of several of these, let's say, hard conversations where I'm like trying to pull it out of them, And I had to realize, like, oh wow, just because they're on the beach and they're sitting by themselves does not mean that we're soulmates. So I had to start realizing that I'm just seeing who they are, and that alone is respectful enough. I think that really helps women, just to say, you know, I'm approaching you not so I can get to the point. I'm actually approaching you because I want to know who you are, because I actually want to vibe with you more than anything. And so then I'm asking these questions because I actually want to know if we're going to be connected. And if she keeps answering in ways where I'm just like, yeah, I'm liking that. What's the, you know, I ask the next question and she gives the answer and I'm like, oh my God, so me too. Like that's so crazy. And I'm not lying. You know, I'm actually being honest in my expressions, because men will actually act like they're interested, just like women can act like they're interested, because they know that if it's like, oh wow, that's cool, like, you know, you study fungus, oh amazing, like that's so awesome. And it's like, no dude, you don't care about fungus, you know, you care about making her happy, and that's a nice thing to do. But scale that out. That is an unsustainable way to approach women, is, you know, by constantly agreeing with them even when you're not interested, because all that's saying is, if we end up doing anything for longer than a year, I can't fake it anymore. Eventually I'm going to say like, God, stop talking to me about fungus, I don't care. That's what's going to happen. And however long it takes. So whenever, so, you know, if I'm actually going to approach a woman because I feel like they're sexually attractive, because I don't know anything else about them other than what they look like. That's the reality, is I'm objectifying them. And I'm saying, you look like someone I would have sex with, you know, or you look like someone I would want to try to get to know. My next thing isn't forcing that attraction. It's by saying, so now prove it. Are you that person? So what are you going to say? How are you going to look at life? How are you going to feel about the things that I do in my life? And if we can vibe on that, and we both seem to have a genuine attraction for what each other is sharing, and we're not dancing around it, you know, trying to hide it, then I'm like, yeah, that's what makes for that awesome connection. And that's the thing that, you know, I personally look for more so now than ever, because it's like, you know, she could be hot even if you have sex with her. During that time, she's gonna say some stuff, she's gonna, you know, do some things, and you're gonna get upset. So it doesn't matter how hot she is. It doesn't mean even the sex is going to be the most amazing thing. You know, I don't think people realize that. I think people really forget that what people say, think, and feel is way more stimulating than anything else. And I really feel like men and women both really desire that deep down, but are just like, ah, but I know I'll never be able to get it.
Well, a
It'll
lot of
take too
people,
long.
I think, like feel like they already know it all. Like I think a lot of people like will walk like, I already experienced it all. Like I already felt it all. You know, I already know it all. So, you know, they're not understanding like there's something like better out there for them. You know what I mean? Or that they can make their experiences better. Like that they can experience life better and see better and um stuff like that. So yeah, like I feel like that's a thing too.
Yeah. It's a very open-minded way, because I think people get into this paradigm of relationships being your one and only. So it's a very Christian paradigm. It's not open love, you know, free love in a way. It's very much if this is the person, then you are there with them forever and you can't look any other way. And I think that people get sucked into this, even people that aren't Christian. They're like, it's a very Western way of looking at relationships. Some people will say it's universal. If you're with one person, you know, you can only be with that one person. But then it makes it very cold for all these other people in our lives that could provide a sense of sensuality. and doesn't have to be purely physical, like straight up sex, but sensuality of just being with someone in that very spiritual and intimate way.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's what makes for a lot of bad marriages, is actually not having an open mind. And they say, hey, I'm really wanting something and you're not providing it, but I also can't look any other direction. That's basically drinking poison every day, because it's like, I'm not allowed to drink from that water fountain. I have to drink from this one. And they're like, but so I'm gonna drink it because I need to drink something. So people want sensuality, but they're so caught up in this mindset that till death do us part, my one and only. And it's a very romantic thing, but in the grand scheme of reality, in the life that we live, we might need to open ourselves up in ways. Otherwise, we're gonna have a horrible relationship with this person over a long period of time. And I feel like having an open mind in that way of, maybe I can actually be with other people and it doesn't have to diminish what we have. Because when someone's happy, like when our partner's happy, they come home happy, and it makes for a better relationship, a better partnership. So some people are willing to are more willing to be in an unhappy relationship but know that the other person isn't going anywhere, versus letting them go off a little bit and then come back a happy and fulfilled person.
I feel like though we could skip that whole thing if people would just like realize, like, how like amazing life could actually be whenever you're open to, like, the spiritualness of, meeting people, and like really looking for like somebody that, that I could really connect with on a deep level, and like not so much like looking for somebody like that can keep me warm, but somebody that, that I can grow with and that I enjoy listening to and stuff like that. So like it was always me that, like, if I was in a relationship, like I wasn't wanting to look outside anywhere else. Because even though I was in a crappy relationship, it was like I chose that person, you know what I mean, until that was done. And when that was done, then I was ready to move on. But I didn't leave until things were closed in my mind, like I could no longer move on. Yeah. So like but it's like, if it was that, like, I was not just looking for somebody to keep me warm, you know what I mean? And somebody that was like interesting, but actually somebody that like I had a commonality with, you know what I mean? Like these guys, I had nothing in common hardly with them. And it's like, I'll go do my thing, you go do your thing, or like the meshing was just like annoying and frustrating and things like that. But I think if we really were like actually like looking for that soul connection, that that it would only be growth from there on out. It wouldn't be something that was like holding you down.
I agree. And again, relative spectrum. So I believe we can find a deeper soul connection, but it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. I think the most dangerous thing in that pursuit of finding the perfect partner to where I won't want to look anywhere else, because I've been saying this for years, probably since I was in preschool. Actually, I didn't know that's what it was I was feeling, but I'm more on a conscious level the last several years. It makes it really hard to connect with someone, because then all I'm doing is looking at all the things where we're not harmonizing.
Yeah.
And so then it makes it harder for me to be with that person. And so then I had to say, okay, well, if I can't have the perfect harmony to where literally we're always in sync and there's no conflict, because we're always going to have conflict. And like you said, you're with that person until you're done. But here's the thing, is you get to decide when you're done. you know? So you're the one saying, I've hit my cutoff point. I've hit my kill switch with this relationship, and now I want to look somewhere else. So imagine having that within the relationship though, you know, like having this point of, okay, I'm unfulfilled, but it doesn't mean I'm 100% unfulfilled to the point where I want to leave you. I'm not going to deplete my whole bank account before I say like, all right, now I'm going to do something about it. Because that's kind of, you know, I think what we do when we have like our complete last run and all of that, and you know, trying to make it work. And it's like we're trying to make it work every which way, when maybe if we just split it up and just said, I'm going to go out on a date night with someone that, you know, seems interesting. Can I do that? And then the partner goes, yeah, like I'm sure that would be really fulfilling for you. And I'd rather see you fulfilled and still be here because I still really love, you know, a lot of you, and I don't want to go somewhere else, but I also want you to be happier, and I don't want to give you prescription drugs, you know? So maybe it's that spark that I just know that I can't provide you right now. What if we came to that space within the relationship? So this is just one approach out of, you know, several. So what if we had that option within a relationship, within a dynamic? And so, you know, the other option is cut it, you know, basically just say I'm with one person and one person only, and that's what makes me feel best. I don't feel good about looking in other directions and coming home. And but I would also say, generally speaking, if we do it from one side, so let's say I'm going off and going on a date, I would only feel more guilty if I knew my partner doesn't necessarily care for it. But if I go out and hang out with the guys and she's like, yeah, go hang out with your guys, I'm like, I can enjoy myself. Why? Because it's consensual, it's mutual. She wants me to go out just as much as I want to go out because we both know how good this is going to feel for both of us. So it's only a bad thing when one of two people disagree with it. That's what makes it so hard. Is usually one person is like, I'm unfulfilled, I want to go out, and the other person is like, I don't want you to go. And you know, I don't want you to go, but I also want you to be happy. And it seems like you can either go and be happy or stay and be sad. And so I want you to stay, but I want you to be happy. And if you stay, you're gonna be sad. And that's a selfish partner right there,
Right.
saying, I don't want you to go, and I don't care if you're sad, you know? And I also demand you to be happy.
Right.
So come
And
back to me when you're
I've had that
happy.
like so many times in like relationships. It's like, you know, I need you to do this and I need you to be happy like right now. And it's like, you know, I'll fight with you and fight with you and fight with you until you're going to be happy. It's like, but what are you doing right now? Like you're fighting with me to be happy? Like that just
Yeah,
makes
right.
no sense at all. But um there's a lot of people that are like that out there though, that like they just want to feel secure and okay, and so they'll fight with our loved ones until it is that, you know, that there's like an understanding. But an argument is that you're not really understanding one another, you're not really coming to a common ground. So it's like, you know, why push it to the point where like we're like this angry and you're now trying to fight with me to be happy? Like I'm supposed to be a robot and just like
Yeah.
do as your controls say.
Yeah. And in a way, they're kind of treating you like a drug, you know? You're supposed to make me happy. And if you're
Yeah.
not going to make me happy, then, you know, I get to complain about you. But it's usually when we're with someone, truly with someone, it's good and bad. And we know that they're not always going to make us happy. Um, and it's selfish of us to demand them to always be happy for us, because really also what they could be saying is that they're actually sad. And
Right.
they're, you know, even if they're happy, they're not truly happy at a deeper level, because they're like, your sadness can strip away my happiness. So that
Right.
means it's not fully there, because a truly happy person can be happy in, let's say, any scenario. Of course, everyone has a threshold, but that's what, you know, a really happy person would say is like, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm here for you. You know, a really happy person would be able to be in that space. A fake happy person would say like, you're not happy. Come back to me when you're happy, you know, because you're killing my buzz. So that means that it's just like a drug, you know, it's a false high or it's an induced high, you know, by you or by the drug. And so now you're basically just being looked at as a drug if they demand you to come back when you're happier. So, you know, all of these are like key things to look at, trying to look at them earlier and earlier. Everyone has you know, like what we were saying at the beginning with the victimization and learning from it, and now we see them all the way down the road and we don't even continue down that road. We take a left and we go, I've been down that road. I see them standing there. I'm not stupid anymore. So, you know, the same thing goes with these relationships is we need to look at them in through this way of like, these are the things that I'm really trying to see in the first 3 dates. I want to ask you these questions and observe them, really be present with them, because if we're going to do something more intimate, we better be on the same page, because if we're also going to look for something amazing, we got to be on the same page. And so that's really vibing, and that's through self-awareness and then trying to get awareness of them by asking them those questions. Don't feel bad about asking them crazy intimate questions. And if they go, wow, that's a little intimate, just be like, then looks like this isn't going to work out. That's a hard one, because if this is too intimate for you, I'm not going to wait a year to ask you this, and then now I'm in a year, and now you tell me the thing I don't want to hear, and now it's not going to be, you know, so easy to just leave. And so it gets really difficult in that. It gets difficult to confront that. So it's like, let's talk about it sooner and see if we're aligned, and we save a ton of time. You know, we save a ton of energy, a ton of emotion, a ton of heartache. And so yeah, I try to speak more of my mind when going on dates and meeting new people. It doesn't even have to be romantic. It's work related. You know, I say where I'm at with work. I say, you know, what stage I'm in. I say what I'm good at, what I feel I'm bad at. You know, I try to let them know, because why? It's all a relationship. You know, like I said, it doesn't matter if they're making coffee, if they're a colleague, you know, we're working together, or we're a romantic partner. Saying these things lets them know where I'm at. And so they get to choose, just as I want them to honestly answer to me. They get, you know, I get to choose. And if we don't choose the same thing, we don't have to take it personally. It's just a lack of alignment. It's not like it has to be a thing. Just because we're on a date with someone doesn't mean that we have to be doing more than that. And same with like a business call or a work call. It doesn't mean it has to be more than that. So all we're doing is trying to find alignment, and hopefully we find alignment not through distorting the truth. Because like I said, people can distort what their business looks like. People can distort what their personal life looks like. People can not tell you the truth because they're too afraid of you saying no. And I think if we got over that, then we would be more willing to find alignment and harmony than just getting the quick fix with that business deal or that, you know, relationship. So so when I feel that from a person, you know, to answer the what do I look for, is I look for the commonality, you know, the synchronicity, the alignment, almost telepathy. If I'm thinking things and they're saying them, which happens with some people, some women in particular, then I feel very attached, you know, or not attached. Let's say that's an unhealthy word. I feel very connected with them, and I monitor how many times they read my mind and they say it. Even if I change my mind as they're speaking it, I've seen some of them change what they're saying. And sure, we could say they're conforming to me on a subconscious level, and it turns into all this metaphysical jujitsu. But basically, you know, as long as I feel they can speak their mind, then I'm really good with that, you know, as long as we're saying the same things, generally speaking. But I just love transparency and honesty. Even if we're not aligned, I still respect a lot of people for speaking transparently and wanting to find alignment, because some people speak their mind and they don't care how it's received. You know, they just say, oh, you know, I'm allowed to say whatever I want. It's your fault you're perceiving it the way that you're feeling. And I go, that's kind of narcissistic. That's sociopathic, even psychopathic. That's me slapping you in the face and then saying, oh, that hurt. That's your fault, you know, for feeling that hurt. You know, pain is an illusion. And so I would not want someone to perceive it that way. If they did, if I say I have a big problem with that, because you might be a psychopath in our relationship, because you might say some shit and I get upset and you not respect my feelings, you know? And so if they can't be aware of that, if they still push back after that and go, no, that's not my fault, I'll go, this is one of those red flags that I don't necessarily care to be your teacher with, because this is something I feel I would be teaching you, is how to care about how other people are receiving what it is you're saying, even if, you know, it's truly what you feel. Because we can speak truly what we feel, but that's one half of the picture. The other half is, how about I try and present it like I care about the other person? That's the other half. They call it being politically correct, you know, and that obviously, if it's only being politically correct, then you lose yourself and then you don't speak how you feel. So both sides are unsustainable. We need both of them together. And so if I call someone out on either end of that, if I feel like they're being too politically correct and I go, do you ever say like how you actually feel? And they get, what? You don't think I'm talking from the heart? You don't think that, you know, this is exactly what I feel? And I go, it was a question first, you know, like let's start there. And so then I assess those things, you know, I look at those things and just their reaction, and I try to see how stimulated they are, how charged they are, and then say, okay, so that's a level of energy with this particular subject that I might have to tiptoe around. Am I okay with that? I might have to speak more directly to that. Am I okay with that? Because we might fight a little bit more. You know, so it's like I assess all those things whenever we're talking, and I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm just trying to find alignment, not just with the subject, but also the intensity of how they feel about it. And the best way to that is to just have both people speaking from their hearts and actually caring about trying to do something with this other person, and telling them, you know, like, even if it's sex, I'm sexually attracted to you. And if they go, oh, wow, you know, that's not appealing, then it's like, okay, so looks like we want two different things from each other. That, you know, no big deal. That doesn't have to be a bad thing, you know? So it's just trying to find alignment in our values and what it is we're looking for with the other person. And some people, I'm looking more of a spiritual connection, and other people I'm looking for more a sexual connection. And it's not like one's better than the other, because both, to me, both together would be amazing. But it's hard to find total unity in like that truly holistic way. Not saying it's impossible, but yeah, there are some people I'm like, I would like to experience you for a short period of time doing this particular thing. You know, if I can do that with dinner, why can't I do it with other things and not have it be weird? And so it's just a really interesting way to like go about, you know, relationships, especially when it comes to like sexuality, because dinner's not sex. And I'm like, well, you are what you eat and you are who you bang, you know? So we are a part, you know. Eating can be a very sensual thing, because you're literally building your body with the food that you eat. So, you know, so that's a very intimate thing, possibly even more intimate than sex, if you want to look at it on a physiological level. But then people would say, oh, that's not nearly as intimate as sex. And I'm just like, then you don't know science, you know. Like what so basically at that point, you know, there's a way to justify anyone's needs and what they're looking for, and it doesn't have to be better or worse than any other. Let's just communicate what we want, and the more I
Right.
can respect that, it
Yeah.
seems like I attract people that align with it. And they're like, yeah, I'm actually looking for the same thing. And I go, this is beautiful. This is what I was envisioning. And I was calling out, I was looking for someone just like you know?
Yeah.
So we just have to tap into that and speak authentically, transparently, compassionately.
And what is it?
Yeah.
Vibe attract.
Tribe.
Vibe attract. How do you
Your
say it?
tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So your
So if you're
vibration
authentic with your vibe, that's what you're going to be attracting.
exactly. And if you're authentic to how you feel, you will match with people that are just as authentic, but then you have to connect with the subject, and then you'll connect with their subject as well. Because when I first started practicing authenticity, I started meeting authentic people, but they were authentic with politics. I was authentic with, metaphysics. And it's like, yeah, we're both authentic, but two different subjects. So it was nice because I was like, man, it's really good to listen to someone talk about, politics without feeling like they're they're trying to, appease one side and degrade the other side. Like they're authentically speaking how they feel in terms of political views. Because now at that point, they're saying, I like a little bit of this political party and I like a little bit of that political party, and so I'm like, yeah, you're authentic, but I don't care about politics. So now, we connected on one level, which is authenticity, but we didn't connect so much on the subject. So then the next thing to look at is, all right, now I want to connect authentically with someone within the same subject, within the same arena.
Right.
And then we send that signal out. And then we end up meeting someone that speaks metaphysics, and they meet someone that speaks politics. So then now we're really harmonizing, because now, it's a win-win. Authenticity is a win, and subjectivity is a win.
Totally
So
agree.
that, to me, yeah, that's my mind in a nutshell, basically. So that was awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
just all that stuff, that's just generally how it all works. It's like, it's crazy. Like, it can be that simple, but it's really hard to situate all of those differences.
Yeah.
But that's, to me, ultimately what a relationship is. Like,
Yeah.
fundamentally, these things put together, and it's
Yeah.
simple. It's just,
And I think like if people weren't looking at things so concretely, instead like looking a little bit beneath the surface, they would see a lot of the things that we talked about in this video. And hopefully, like this will be a paradigm shift for them watching this video and like
hopefully.
listening to
It took me a while to get to all of these things, like a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean,
work
me
to
too.
move through. Yeah. So I mean, if it makes sense, if they're listening to it and they're like, oh yeah, they probably already did all that work,
Right. Yeah.
and so they've already done the shifting. But for other people, it's either triggering or it's confusing. And so then that's where it's like, yeah, really, really sit with these things, like take time with them,
Yeah.
sit with them by yourself, go out to wherever it is your sweet spot is, and just sit with them and just watch, like play the philosophies and the principles that we talked about, and then fill it in with your own personal details: who, what, when, where, and then, and those are the details of your life to fill in the what, and the why and the how. Mainly the why, which is what we were talking about. We put meaning in a little bit of the how. We put meaning to relationships, and then we did how does that work. So then all the others you fill in with your own life situation.
Right.
And that's the best way to practice, exercise, and then practice these things.
And I mean, like this, like knowledge that they're receiving from this. So like it'll change like every relationship from here forward, because like they'll start looking at things not so you know, on the surface it's like I just need a quick fix, but actually like looking into this, like, is this person actually gonna hurt me in the long run? And it's really gonna make like open their minds up to like really thinking a little bit deeper into
And
like
you
the
can have the
relationship.
quick fix.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the quick fix. It's just don't look at it like you're shooting up, you know, like actually say, I'm just looking for a short-term connection, but I want to still be connected, but I'm
Yeah.
just not
I don't
trying,
know though, Jack.
you know, not,
I feel like
I know it's
oftentimes
not for
people,
everyone.
yeah, people will try this. They'll be all tough man and be like, listen, I was just using her for this. And then they ended up accidentally falling for that girl.
Yeah, totally. And you know, in life, everything's open-ended.
Yeah.
But that's where I really believe in communication. If you know, if I say I'm really just wanting a certain experience short term, but I'm feeling more, I have to be able to say that. You know,
Yeah.
I have to and not like be afraid of saying that. Just say like, yeah, this is where my mind's going. You know, or let's just say I committed to something deeper, and then I've been going the other way, and I'm like my mind's
Right.
deviating. I have
Yeah.
to be able to say that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not wrong. You don't have to say like, since I told you long term, I'm looking long term, I'm going to make it long term, you know, or
Yeah.
short term. Since I said short term, I'm only going to make it short term, even though I'm falling
Yeah.
for you. It doesn't have to be that way. It can go in all sorts of directions because that's life. You don't know where the current's going to go. But the thing is being able to communicate that and feel it out. And then, you know, just really still be with that person, even if, you know, it's a short-term thing, still be with that person in that moment, you know, and just, I know that may not be the most intuitive thing for people, but anything can work in either staying together or falling apart, long-term or short-term. Just communicate it without playing some, you know, like you said, the guy that said he was tough and everything, and now he's falling for her. And then he doesn't want to say it because he's like, I told her it was just a short-term thing, and I'm feeling things for her. Be okay with that. Be okay with how we feel, and just be willing to speak it on a regular basis. Don't hold
Yeah, that's what
it
I've been
back.
learning too a
That is
lot
the
lately.
problem.
It's like speaking things, even if I feel like it's like embarrassing, or even if I feel like, you know, it's scary to say it. I'm like really starting to teach myself like to say it anyway, because like what I think isn't, you know, that's just a perception. You know, if I want
It
to say it,
is.
it's probably
And what
needed to
they
be
think is
said.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like, you know, when I'm afraid of saying something, it means that I'm dependent on them in some way because I'm
Yeah.
afraid they're going to strip it away. If I'm truly independent, then I could say whatever the fuck I want. But
Yeah.
the thing is, if we're afraid, that means that it doesn't even have to mean that they're going to strip something material. It could just mean stripping their attention away. You know, like I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of not being able to have someone to call at the end of the day, you know, because I say this thing and they're gonna turn away. We're afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
So when we say the hard thing, because we're like, I can't stop thinking about this difficult thing, but I also can't say it, then I think the thing is just realize we might be more afraid of rejection. And if we can get comfortable with rejection, we find another level of personal sovereignty within ourselves. And it most likely won't be a bad thing once we do tell them. Because if we come to that space before we say it to them, and we go, yeah, you know, I'm really having a hard time saying this, and we actually tell that to them, and then we do say it, not only do we exercise our personal sovereignty, but they can feel that, and they actually probably aren't going to be as harsh or rude or mean or rejecting toward us.
Yeah.
They're going to feel that, even though they may disagree. It's going to be way better than just saying it without premeditating on that, and coming to that space of I'm saying this for my own self-care, my own self-love, because it's weighing on my shoulders. But I need to get it off, and I'm not going to do it from a place of pointing, like saying that this is, this is everything I've wanted to say. So I think if we can come to that space, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, and we can have more of these open conversations that are difficult to have. But a lot of times people don't premeditate on what it is they're going to say, and they speak from an emotionally charged place. And then that's when it turns into this horrible dog fight. So I believe that if we say the difficult thing, we should premeditate on it and really try to look at it and what we're afraid of and how we can try to find a win-win in that expression. Even if they're going to leave us, we have to be willing for them. We have to be willing to handle them leaving us.
Yeah.
And if every time I do that, they usually don't leave. They actually, it's actually a lot better than when I say the thing without realizing, oh wow, they could be very upset, and they don't have to be around. Every time that I consider that, almost every time that I'm compassionate to this is upsetting for them. They may not like me saying this, and they may leave. It's actually way better in the end. They actually have, it's a way smoother conversation, because all I'm trying to do is be compassionate for them as well. So I'm saying my piece and I go, I know this is upsetting. I'm not trying to be upsetting. That's not my intention. My intention is that these are the things I'm feeling, and I know you probably have a different feeling. I know you probably have a different frame of mind around this. You've been seeing it a different way. I'm opening to hear that different way. That's way better than this pointing fingers of getting it off our chest by pointing fingers. Yeah. It's way better that way. So then we don't have to be as scared speaking our truth. And if they leave us, then we go, great, you saved me some time.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. All right, well, this is Jack Coleman again with quantum coils and quantum coaching. Yeah. Definitely check them out. I'll send out a couple links with this as well, so you can get in touch with his website and get in contact with him. So yeah, I'm really grateful that
Thank you.
You did this.
Yeah, same with you. I appreciate the chat. Same with you.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.